What's up, chooms? Get your eddies out. We got a preem episode coming down the pipe for you. Getting gonked on that cyberpunk train. We got the comrades in the chat.
Taking hits from Dum
What's up,
Dum.
guys?
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, I don't you hate it when some 2-bit Joy Toy steals your Mr. Stud implant?
Or it misfires and you don't get to have all the fun you were thinking you would.
Dude, can we
Don't
like
you hate
this?
when
Highlight a highlight
wear
of
way
side
too much
quests.
cyberware and just fucking kill people and don't realize it?
Probably the best side job in the entire game is the dude with the malfunctioning Mr. Stud.
Yeah. They do that one
Yep.
very early too. They drop that on you instantly.
Yeah.
They're like, yo, you just finished getting back with Jackie. Go fucking drive this dude with a malfunctioning dick to a fucking doctor.
His pants
Which is
are on
hilarious because it
fire.
introduces you to the absolute worst mechanic in the game, driving.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So to sum up
That's
my
true.
experience with driving, I was playing before we recorded, and I was walking down the sidewalk to a job, and a car swerved off the road and hit me, and like hit 4 more civilians, and then swerved back onto the road.
Dude,
and kept
I saw
going.
this. Matt was streaming last night, folks. Go check us out at twitch.tv/campaignComrades. And he was streaming last night, and we were talking about how just because we've been, prepping for this episode, my algorithm has been blessed with all sorts of cyberpunk memes. And so I saw a great one yesterday, but I don't think I sent it to the chat, which I'm regretting. It was like cyberpunk traffic is approaching real world. Looks like Matt may have had a PC crash.
Yep.
So we'll continue, or maybe we'll restart. We'll see. But the meme was, cyberpunk traffic is starting to approach the same levels of reality for motorcycle drivers. So it was a dude just on a bike, so someone's V on a bike just going down, and just out of nowhere a fucking like mini truck just swerves out, hits him, and launches him off a bridge into the bay. And
Nice.
like,
Oh my
literally
god.
just like,
Dude, the
like
Night City drivers menaces.
a direct just literal swerve and just plows, and you see the bit where you crash off of a bike where you just hands come out and the dude just flies into the water. It was incredible. It was incredible stuff.
There's definitely good physical comedy around the physics of the cars in particular with this game.
For as much as, and Matt can't defend himself right now because again he has dropped from the call and hopefully will be returning in at least a couple minutes. For as much as he hates driving, he's still stuck with cars way more than I understood. He even accepted and told me, it's like, yeah, bikes are much better. And then like throughout all the bits that I've seen him play, he's still driving a car, and I'm like,
Hilarious. I just
why
always
do
use
this to
Jackie's
yourself?
bike.
Oh, Jackie's bike was probably one of my favorites, and then I had
Yeah.
more of like a kind of a dirt bike one that
That's the only one I do want to get because
Matt,
Jackie's bike can't handle the desert.
Oh yeah, no, it doesn't. Have you checked off your one PC crash of the day?
It was. I watched it happen too because you were continuing to speak, but the audio stopped.
Yeah,
I saw your face froze on just what's going on here.
It was a perfect freeze.
So now you're back.
What happened?
10 fucking minutes after my computer starts, it crashes once and then it's fine.
Now you can defend yourself again. We were still talking about the driving. How you had, self-admitted driving is your least favorite bit, and then you decided that yes, we were correct and motorcycles were good. Yet you still continue to punish yourself and use cars.
Yeah, listen to why that was the car that showed up. Because when you do Send in the Clowns, you need to drive a car, not a motorcycle. And I picked a big, slow car so that I didn't get tempted to speed around in Johnny's Porsche and kill the dude I accidentally did with Rogue.
Okay, yeah, I remember now. For that one, I used Claire's big ass truck for that one.
Yeah,
that's the reward for the same thing. It's slow, it's tanky. grenade face isn't going to blow up on
Yeah.
me. I
It
remember.
gives you the
No, I
you have more
actively
leeway.
avoid driving as much as possible. If I do, it's on a motorcycle, and it's pretty much only in the Badlands because fuck running between
trying to
shit
rent
out there.
Yeah, no. That's no good.
Yep.
You want to run through a 2 fucking kilometer long mile of just trash as far as the eye can see with no visual distinction.
Dude,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say the Badlands are like, of all of the areas in this game, definitely my least favorite.
So
I was gonna say, like,
before we move on from driving though, and I know we'll get probably more into it later, my biggest complaint and what I think makes the driving shittiest as the only driving sim player here is the inability to like pan out further or like change the angle that you
you do have
watch the
some
driving
options.
permanently.
You do have some options, but they're not a lot. You can
But
go
it
first
doesn't.
person. You can pull out to like kind of low third person and a higher third, and
But
that's
it's
better.
it's still not
Yeah.
high enough. It's still like kind of like eye level, so you can't get a full like idea of what's going on in front of you, and it makes for
The
driving
people
more
who
difficult.
drive in first person in Cyberpunk are sickos who
Sickos,
deserve punishment.
absolute. They
I mean, I
hang
don't know
them
how
by
you
their
don't kill a
toenails in
billion
a
civilians
dungeon.
that way, because the civilians of Night City don't give a fuck about cars. They're like,
Yeah,
yo, I'm
I
crossing
don't
the road
either.
right now. I don't give a shit about you. The
Right.
amount of
And-
fucking police encounters I've started because
Right,
I'm driving and all of a sudden a
gonna
civilian
say,
just decides to walk in front of me.
I sparked my the GTA wanted system the most by doing minor traffic violations.
Yeah, absolutely. That is 100% what triggered the cops most for
fucking
me.
meter maid bullshit. Like just had them
Always.
on my ass all the
My
time.
favorite part is there's some weird dynamic in the game in driving. Where if you're fucking zipping along, speeding along, doing your crazy shit like I do in the Johnny's Porsche because it's the only car that feels good to drive in the entire game.
The weaponized vehicle, or is
No,
there another?
Johnny's
you get
911.
Johnny's
Okay.
Porsche, yeah. By doing
It actively feels like it shifts well between its gears and like flows well as a vehicle. But shit, where was I going with that? I got derailed.
You're saying about
I'm not sure.
when you like get going and doing some crazy shit on
Yeah.
In a car doing something. I don't exactly know where you were going with it.
But while you think on that, I will add, honestly, I think it's just the one thing that makes the driving very difficult is there's no, once the car starts moving, it's like you're in zero friction. And you just, even if you let off the accelerator, it doesn't really slow down. You just coast at such a fast speed.
You have to feather the brake to slow down.
Exactly. And that's what makes turning so difficult is like it just makes everything Tokyo Drift.
It's just super floaty.
What I was going to say is when you're zipping around on the road, the NPC cars seem to just speed up and start driving crazy with you.
It's
like
I've had
the most
it's
instances
like you're doing
of
Mario
civilians
Kart in the rubber banding.
shit.
And they're rubber banding your ass.
Yeah. No, because I've gone into an intersection on a motorcycle at like 100+ miles per hour because I can cut that corner and go, and watched a car just smash straight headfirst into a guardrail.
Perfect. All right. So enough on the driving. Cyberpunk 2077. 2077. How do you guys pronounce it?
I call it 2077.
All right. So
sure everybody
Cyberpunk 2077, one of the most talked about games, I'd say, of the last 4 years, released in 2020 based on
it was like the most hyped game of
original
the
Cyberpunk
of the decade up until its release. It was like the most hyped game for like a decade.
And then its release.
Oh boy.
Yeah, the most The
The
most
most
hyped
unhyped
game.
game.
Yes, it's probably one of the worst release cycles of all time, which we will touch on. Published by CD Projekt Red, developed by CD Projekt Red, based on Mike Pondsmith's Cyberpunk tabletop game series. Mike Pondsmith was also a consultant for the game and worked heavily with CD Projekt Red on the story. I'm just going to give a couple high level rundown of the development cycle, and then we can get into all of the fun that you've already kind of alluded to with the release. So this was something I was a little surprised by, but the game was kind of started back all the way in 2012. So a full 8 years before release, CD Projekt Red reached out to Mike Pondsmith, asking if he would work with them on a Cyberpunk game, which later came to be known as Cyberpunk 2077. The script was written in Polish first, which I found interesting because it is
Polish.
set in the U.S. and yeah, I mean they are Polish, but just the translation's really great. I think there's no like localization issues that were caused by that. It was developed in CD Projekt Red's Red Engine 4, which I think this is something to note.
I don't think you can ever forget what engine
release.
it's in because they spam that at you for fucking 20 seconds every time you boot the game up.
It is, however,
Right,
going to be
and-
the
and
last
they-
game in that engine, though.
Right. The
They're
last
they're
game
moving to
in
Unreal.
an
Oh
engine
boy,
that they
I can't wait
worked
for them
on.
to join the Unreal party.
They worked on the engine through 2017. So really there was like a year to 2 years of development of this game where they actually had a final engine that they were working on. So I think that is probably something that played a factor
I was
in
about to say there's a
this game
prelude to
released
something
in.
to come. We call that foreshadowing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then so in terms of marketing, as Ben said, yes, this was a highly, not only has it been a highly talked about game over the last 4 years since release, but one of the most hyped games of the 2010s. It was officially announced in May of 2012, which is like, again, another part of this issue with why the game released in the state it released in. They announced this game so far in advance. Like,
That's
and I
what,
know we
8
talk
years
about how
ahead?
that's,
I don't really
yeah,
think
8
they've
years
even.
ahead of when it's released.
The one thing is, I don't think they've learned that lesson, because
Because they did that with The Witcher.
they
No.
did that with the most recent Witcher, which ties into what we were
They're
just talking
using
about
it for hiring.
with
We've
the
already said
engine.
that.
It was, yeah, we've talked about that in the past. How that was an announcement being like, we're making the new Witcher game in Unreal Engine 5. We need people who know how to use Unreal Engine 5. Please come to work with us so you get to work on the new Witcher game. That was, and we've talked about that. That's an industry thing. That's not unique to them. That most game announcements now, like initial announcements, are about hiring.
Are 30% for the fans, 70% for employment.
It's industry shit, yeah.
Especially that early. But they did have a trailer in January of 2013. So like they really fed this hype cycle and created a expectation that I think ultimately kind of damned the release of this game when it did happen. As Ben stated, this was a super hyped game. I saw something like it had won 100 awards already before release, just focused around like the excitement of this game and how it's going to be the next best thing.
I hate how they do
one of
that.
the
There is
clear
always a
examples
category of
of
that at the Game Awards. I hate it. I hate that shit.
Reviewers and day one patches being completely different, because it was reviewed fairly decently before launch. If you
that's where we're gonna go to next. Right. So prior to release, they did provide review copies. However, and we have had this happen since, and it's never been a great sign. They only provided PC review codes, which to Matt's point, resulted in some really good reviews once the embargo lifted. However,
It
once
runs great
people
on my
got their hands on the
3090.
game, once people got their hands on the game, the console version for both the PS4 and Xbox One were, to put it lightly, complete shit shows. I think
The
I'm
day
the only
one
one who
PS4
played this
footage was
game.
hilarious. The amount of
Yeah.
T-posing people
So
in cars.
Yeah, I want to say my it is. I would
T-posing,
give them their
textures not
flowers.
loading.
I'll give them their flowers for what I think is the funniest glitch of all time, the funniest bug of all time. Getting on a motorcycle, standing up, T-posing, pants fall down. Just
Yeah, that's definitely
and
a
continuing
top
and,
glitch.
and continuing to drive, but just seeing someone just stand up on the bike, T-pose, pants down, continue going. Ultimate power
I
move.
mean,
right
what would
there.
you do if you saw someone do that in real
Ass
life?
out. Salute.
I do also like the ones how it's like, you know, you can completely customize your genitals, so they would just be having an incredibly large penis clip through your pants. Like that was a classic one
Yes.
too.
Great.
But the T-posing pants
Um,
down is definitely my favorite. Still makes me laugh to this day.
Honestly, a very hilarious glitch. So ultimately, yeah. So I don't. None of you did. Any of you even buy this game at initial
did.
release?
I couldn't.
Matt did. Okay. Yeah, I know you didn't.
Technically speaking, the game copy I am playing right now is my launch day copy of Cyberpunk that I bought for the PS4.
Yeah, and I bought it as well at launch. And I think Matt, you didn't play it ever. I played
Oh
it.
God, no.
I put about 10 hours in. And yeah, it was playable, but it was not enjoyable.
You were playing on a Pro, right? And on PS4
Yes.
Pro.
Yes,
I was
and I
on a
was on the
Slim.
Pro. Right, and the Slims had even more issues. That's where it was
because I bought
unplayable.
that game with anticipation to have that be the game I would jump to after Horizon, because I was wrapping up Horizon Zero Dawn around then. And then the reviews of how it played on PS4 came out, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna play anything else, anything that is not named this. I'm gonna play Bloodborne. I'm going to play Bloodborne."
Yes. So ultimately reviews for I have the Metacritic scores. And the PC is an 86 out of 100. The PS4 and is a 57 out of 100 because it's essentially unplayable there. So that's pretty fair. Xbox One, the other essentially unplayable console, is 61 out of 100, so a little bit better. And
I like to say
the
that was grading
newer
on a curve,
consoles
because they were like,
have,
"Well, you know, it's a bad game, but compared to everything else that there is to play on this console, like, you know, it's a D."
Gets a few extra points.
got a bump.
It is a game. It is a game.
And then
it does exist.
Yeah, that it is. So ultimately, Sony delisted this game for approximately 6 months. Refunds were all offered, etc., etc. CD Projekt Red was sued by their shareholders. A lawsuit they eventually settled and paid $1.85 million out for.
Million?
Which,
That's barely
in terms
even money.
of the financials, is nothing.
Do you remember what the impact was on their value, though? Wasn't it something crazy, like almost like 50%?
Yes,
they had a huge stock drop.
Yeah.
Yes, their stock price declined. It wasn't 50, but it was about a quarter. They lost about 25% of their share value over the ensuing month and a half. Initially, as soon as reports came out about how bad the game was performing, it dropped about 10% over a day and then continued to decline a further 15% or so from there.
When the people who control
right.
stock prices, who barely understand video games, are like, "Oh shit, this game bad. We gotta we gotta drop expectations here."
Not great. But the thing is, ultimately, even with everything that happened, Cyberpunk is a unmitigated financial success. Like they, in the first week, had
people like me
grossed,
exist.
No, sorry. In the first month, they grossed over $600 million in revenue, which is more than the budget for both Cyberpunk and the DLC cost. So they've been more than profitable on this game from a financial perspective.
Which that is funny because people did, when Phantom Liberty came out, they were trying to spin that it itself was not like that the sales from just the DLC did not cover its cost, you know, ignoring base game profits. That the
Yep.
that it
I mean,
was like,
DLC attach rates are always hard to like go through.
But I do remember.
If you look
I do
at
remember when that came out.
Like if you go look at the Phantom Liberty like trophy list and like the clear percentages on those, like they're shockingly low for some like really easy things, and it's because a lot of people just who buy the game will never engage with the DLC.
But yeah, wasn't it something though that like the game sold, despite all the, you know, bad press and about the terrible state of the game, it still sold something like 15 million copies. Around launch.
As of March 28th, it had sold over 25 million copies. So this is not, despite
one quarter,
the fact that CD Projekt Red,
you have a split on
fucked
that
up disastrously.
via PC versus console.
Let me see. I might hear
because it'll be
have the
interesting because if it
split,
was
but I don't know
delisted,
if it did.
Then there might not be console numbers even accounted for in that, outside of maybe physical copies that weren't refunded, like people like me.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, it doesn't. The article I have here does not split it out.
I wouldn't expect it to, but it's just
platform.
something I thought about.
No, that would be an interesting question. But ultimately, yes. So despite
how many of them were in China,
despite CD Projekt Red, yeah,
No,
how many of those sales numbers
were in Poland?
Yeah, how many were in Poland? Did Poland give every worker a day off to play?
Did they cheat too?
What's the population of
so
Poland?
Ultimately, though, not that big. So ultimately, though, CD Projekt Red ended up releasing over 12 patches. One of them, with the Edgerunners update, was the first really big patch that essentially made the game somewhat playable on the PS4 and enhanced it for the PS5 and Xbox
was that
Series
2.0
X versions.
No,
that's 1.6.
Yeah.
So that was 1.5 when they released it. 1.6 was then the big one.
They still hadn't done the major like overhauls to systems.
Right.
Like the skill trees.
Right, which that's patch 2.0.
Yeah.
Right. And that came out with the release of the DLC, which
now we're on 2.12.
was in September. Yeah, September 21, 2023, when Night City came out.
Yeah, we're at a year from that now. Yeah, and that's when I played. I played at the 2.0 launch. I never touched it before the 2.0 launch.
So and the thing is, they not only, which so this is something I wanted to talk about, because that 2.0 update essentially made Cyberpunk a completely new game from when it was originally released, to the point where
there was actually like angry
where
fans.
CD Projekt Red recommended because CD Projekt Red recommended restarting your gameplay if you were in the midst of the storyline. So I think it's really interesting that almost 2 years, almost 3 years, apologies, after the original game came out, they released what really should have been the original release of this game. It took them that much longer to finally finesse
I mean, they
and
potentially would have had a shortened
massage what
timeline
they
if
had.
they didn't have to spend the first year basically like on their knees apologizing 70% of the time, and then 30% of the time trying to fix things that were actively still out instead of what, like, if it was still in-house and not released, I think the timeline would have been a lot shorter because you don't have to worry about
Yeah, that's fair. It probably would have been like 18 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably
Especially without
would
the
have been about
fucking
like 18 months as
70% of
opposed to almost 3
their
years.
effort being apologizing and apologizing and apologizing and capitulating and apologizing.
Yeah, exactly. So they really re-released this game about a year ago. That's the version we've all played through. And ultimately, as someone who played prior to those changes to the skill trees, um, this was a very necessary change. The original skill tree was very, it was way overbuilt. There was too many choices. They seemed inconsequential, and they really streamlined it and made it feel much more weighty.
I mean,
Essentially, when you
the
actually invest
job
a skill
tree is
point,
the
you
more
see the
impactful one than
difference.
the skill tree, in my opinion.
The
The
which
job
one?
tree. What do you mean by that?
So like, is
Like
it mean like the solo
Netrunner,
headhunter?
solo shinobi,
Okay.
engineer. Those perks have a lot more tangible effect when they kick in, and you have like very minimal control over them, other than like reading into what things boost them quicker. Like
Yes.
I started
Agreed.
using a sword recently, a katana, because I'm trying to get the 100 melee kills trophy. And it's crazy how quickly I went from like level 28 shinobi to level 42 shinobi almost instantly, because I started engaging with a
Yes.
weapon that boosts that
Mm.
one skill. And now I have like sprint
Yeah.
while
That.
crouching and some very
No, that
useful
totally makes a big
skills.
difference. And so ultimately, though, what I just did want to highlight was that at the end, CD Projekt Red acknowledged that they rushed this to release. The managers, the business decision makers at CD Projekt Red are the reason this game came out so broken, because they had set a timeline that wasn't fair for development. They had pushed the release multiple times, including a breaking last minute delay that pushed the game from an initial release date in mid November to December 10th of that year, which was announced, I think, essentially a week before that release date was going to be met. So
Always a beautiful sign.
what I found, yeah, what I found interesting though was just the fact that we did see some culpability taken by leadership, and it wasn't, they didn't place blame with the development team, which I thought was, at least a positive response to what was ultimately very bad decision making that resulted in crunch and a very poor release of a game.
Only the Polish could make that decision to
Actually apologize,
yeah.
to actually own up. Yeah, I mean,
That's not an
that's something I
American
do want to
decision.
talk about. Well, and that's something I wanted to also talk about is how um, the themes of this game somewhat mirror CD Projekt Red's own demise, in that CD Projekt Red had long considered
Project
itself this
Red
more
bombed Arasaka Tower.
outsider.
Where did
This more like
CDPR get the
outsider.
physical material?
They planted a bomb at Biotechnica headquarters. Like what?
But it does mirror some of CD Projekt Red being this outsider. We're focused on the consumer, we're focused on our team, we're the good guys kind of view in the minds of both consumers and I think their workers. To we released this game early in a disastrous state purely for financial reasons, and that is kind of the opposite of what they had stood for. So this was really a red mark
I mean, yeah,
on
they
CD
up
Projekt
until the
Red.
launch
They
of
lost a lot
Cyberpunk, they were the
of
darling
trust.
studio. They can do no wrong. The Witcher 3 is incredible. Every DLC is incredible. We love what CD Projekt Red does, and Cyberpunk gave them such a blow to their like the goodwill they'd built with fans that there was a lot of like negativity around them. I'm like, well, like, can we trust them to, the next Witcher? Like, are we worried now that the Witcher is going to be cyberpunked?
So, Cyberpunk
Mhm.
then has become, the watchword across the industry, right? Is like why we're not seeing, it's something that kind of needed to happen in a certain sense to, it's not that we still don't get plenty of broken games, but like they're,
Right.
they're not as extreme because, at least some of the investing class is like, yeah, we've seen what happens here. We don't want to be the next Cyberpunk. But what I do find kind of impressive and astounding still is like how CDPR has kind of clawed back their at least a good portion of that reputation with the release of Phantom Liberty and 2.0, that people have been willing to forgive that element of it. I think a lot of it goes a long ways that people are more forgiving of studios and properties that are, say single player, single payment type things, not they're not exploitative in their financial practices, so people are more forgiving to those type of games and those problems that like they're being like, okay, yes, we were mad at you, you kind of used and abused us here, but like yeah, you've owned up. And
And
yeah,
in the
so I don't
end, you
necessarily,
fixed it.
yeah, I don't necessarily know
Cyberpunk's
that it's a,
comeback was almost bad for the industry, is
yeah, I
what
don't
I
know that
would
it's a,
almost
I
say.
don't know that it's a
Yeah.
healthy, I don't know
Because
that it's
it
really
leads
been a
to an
healthy
unhealthy
thing.
amount of cope amongst fans when a bad game comes out. They're like, no, guys, don't worry. Like 2 years from now, everything will be fixed. The game will be great. It'll be like Cyberpunk and No Man's Sky again. Everything is perfect.
Yeah. No, I do think like they did, Ben, you said it there too. Like they actually rectified the situation. And that's something we don't often see in this industry.
Andrew, I have a question for you. Um, I wonder, kind of to Matt's point, to this whole, all our points combined here, that, you know, they were able to rectify it. There's been goodwill because of that. There's like this cope for other games that get released. I wonder if the the big brain financial heads are going to start, if they're projecting a slow year, if they have a big game, whether it's ready or not, releasing it to, gain the initial sales of it, whether it's, ready or not, it's
I
broken,
mean,
but
that's
they
basically just treating a pre-launch or a launch as a like paid alpha or beta, more or less.
essentially, where you're
You're
paying
like,
Yeah.
here,
full
here,
price,
pay to play this game and find all the problems we don't want to pay QA developers to
and then
find.
you're going to get like a 25+% hit when increase in sales again when you release
It's
the
also
the full
incredibly risky
copy.
though,
Yeah, you
because
can you can
if you can't pull it back and you
Yeah.
have a we're so back moment, that
But
is
but if they
devastating
don't,
to your
you
next
can always
chance.
count on the executive class to take the wrong lesson from these
yeah,
things, right?
exactly,
Rather
and they're
rather than
willing to take that risk.
they will launch a game that is in a quote unquote acceptable state, but that the goalpost of what is acceptable has shifted.
Yep.
I
It
don't remember
is
who the quote is attributed to, whether it's Miyamoto or Sakurai, but it's a delayed game can still be
It's
good.
Miyamoto, but that whole thing is apocryphal. He claims to have not said that. But
It's
yeah,
fine. It
the
still
class
works.
the
Oh,
classic. Yeah,
really?
it's apocryphal. It's like he's like, yeah, it wasn't
Hilarious.
me. It's like it's
Hilarious.
attributed to him, but like nobody knows who said it, like where it comes from. It was like a
It
purely
was
kind
just a
of
random Japanese man that
fabricated,
a reporter walked up to and was like, "Oh my God, Miyamoto-san." He was just a man in
So
San Francisco.
Yeah, I think like
so I
it's largely that the
do
goalposts have shifted, right? Of what's considered acceptable. Like it would be, you know, something that is playable, but like we
Yep.
get plenty of things that are not like actually feature complete. Um, take like this is a completely different genre, but something like, I'm Warhammer pilled, more than usual now because of Space Marine 2 coming out. But like take like Dark Tide, right? Something that
Which
was
launched
large.
as a basically non-existent game.
It like largely functioned. It was technically in an okay state. Yeah, there were
It had like
problems with some of its
four
multiplayer,
missions.
but yeah, it had like 4 missions and like, but it had a cash store. Oh, it had the cash shop. So like these things are launching feature incomplete.
Part of
That's
me
you're
wonders
seeing
if
that
they
more and
always add a
more.
cash shop to like Warhammer 40K games because they know Warhammer fans already spend exorbitant amounts of money on models. So they
Mhm.
know they're going to want to go into the game and make their characters look like their army or
Uh-huh.
like their particular faction.
What I like about Space Marine 2 so far is I haven't gotten to that part of it yet, but all the customization is in game, right? There is no premium currency. There's a shit ton of in-game currencies and shit that you're earning and experience on different things to unlock all that stuff, but that's a progression path. That's rewarding gameplay. So
yeah,
I
that's
understand.
okay.
Well, yeah,
My I
let's not
think
get into war. But yeah,
Yeah, I was going to say.
the
yeah,
industry
no, we
will
don't need to go
all
down
the
that rabbit
industry will
hole.
always take the wrong lesson.
Yep.
Totally, totally. But the with I think there is one caveat for doing something like that, and you have to have a game that has a hyped fan base to some
Yes.
extent. You
Yeah. Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
have a committed fan base already.
Yeah, I
You
will
couldn't
say,
you couldn't
yeah,
do that
like
as a
the No
smaller
Man's Sky,
Exactly.
the No Man's Sky and the Cyberpunk examples are slightly unique because even in their shitty kind of launch states, they still had a ridiculous number of sales, right? You can justify
No Man's
Yeah.
Sky
But think
hype was
about GTA
insane.
6.
you can justify the spending more time and money and this increased development when it's like, yeah, okay, we've got a dedicated base that we can really kind of pull from here. Not every game deserves to do that because they say, like, again, we're pulling to current examples. Concord does not deserve the treatment of
Yeah.
that the numbers aren't there
Right.
to back that up. Whereas when you say, yes, 15 million people still bought our broken ass game, imagine how many more will continue to play. If it is a big if, it is still a risk, but like if we can turn the corner, right? If we can get those 15 million people happy and they go tell their friends, what does that number turn into? And we see it turns into 25, 30 million, so, or more. So it makes sense for that circumstance.
Absolutely.
We're gonna see the onset of gaming companies pulling the original Sonic movie trailer where they intentionally
Yeah,
release
yeah.
a known bad quantity game and then like fix it like 2 months later with what was like the original designed version of the game the entire time. Be like, look, guys, we fixed it. We hear you. We're sorry. Like we did it as fast as possible because you're good little boys and girls. And
And back to Ben's point about taking the wrong example or the wrong lesson from this happening. It's like you look at Nintendo, and we talk about this all the time. Nintendo just shelves games until they decide that they want to release them, and it's like they do gangbusters on any game that they do that for, and it is a game usually with a fan base built into it.
I mean,
Um,
that's a whole Nintendo thing. Nintendo's entire game ecosystem is a fan base that is
yes,
tapped into.
exactly. And so they're able to do that, and they sit on these games. They never have issues with them. Like, I mean, they do, but they're not
Can
If
you
as
Nintendo
name can
knows
you
they have a
name a
substantial.
short
feature?
year for JRPGs, they drop a Fire Emblem
Yeah,
game that they
can
know
Yeah.
you
they've had.
name can you name a feature incomplete first, like, say first party
No.
Nintendo game.
No,
I mean, like,
fuck no.
even
Maybe
Pokemon,
Mario Party.
Yeah.
but even Pokemon, like, it performs like fucking dog shit, but
Yeah.
like still has a
Everything's
shit
there.
ton of content.
Yeah.
It's it goes
No,
at like
the
2 frames
problem
a
with
second and you
Pokemon
fall
wasn't
through
the
the ground.
content. The problem with Pokemon was how it played and
Yeah,
ran.
exactly.
Right. So like
Yeah,
that is a different story, and like
Yeah.
it's still something to think about. But yeah, it is still feature complete.
But like, it's like no one looks to that example of like, okay, maybe we should try that. Maybe we should keep
I think
cyber
most
cycling
people in the
games.
industry at this point have just accepted the fact that they can't be Nintendo.
Oh.
They're like they look at Sega and they're like, Sega tried so hard to be Nintendo and it killed them. Like, we're just gonna let Nintendo do their thing, and because they're gonna send sleeper agents out in Mario hats to take out anyone who tries to step on their, Astrobot's got to watch his fucking back. Is all I'm saying.
But again, that's people like trying to be like the Nintendo brand, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying take a business strategy that they've shown is a successful one,
and then they serve you legal documents because they copyrighted that legal strategy in the 1930s in Japan.
No, you can't do that.
So that's something though that I think this game kind of has started in my mind, which that isn't necessarily true, but the discussion around these very long dated development cycles that are publicized and marketed throughout is, I think, a big issue.
And another
I think
thing
this
that
is
Nintendo
one of
doesn't do.
Right, exactly. And I think it's another I don't know. I am interested of your opinions as to when that started to kind of become part of the zeitgeist for you, but I think this is kind of the tipping point of when we're seeing the first game of these long development cycles having problems because of that development cycle's length. Whether it's that the fan base is so rabid that they push you to release a broken game early, or that you have a game that uses outdated references and chases a trend that was already dead upon release, like Concord. I think this is kind of the first big impact in a negative way that we saw as consumers.
I can say in my own professional experience that the longer you drive out a design process, the worse it becomes. The more voices always get involved, the more people try to
too many
add
cooks.
their, like you just end up with too many voices trying to, chime in and help, or you end up with too many like, oh, well, like, what if we add this system because this system would be really cool too, and like that would interplay so well with this system, right? Like, you have to have them both now.
The one change that we've seen is like they're not none of the big publishers are stopping the ridiculous early announcements. Like fucking Elder Scrolls 6 has been announced already for like
2020.
Yeah, 4 years at this point. The one change is they stopped talking about it. That's the thing, is the hype in between now drops off, which has its own problems because then,
now every time there's an Xbox showcase, people are like, where's Elder Scrolls? Elder Scrolls 6 when?
Well, fans are like, does this mean it's dead? Is Silk Song dead? Is Elder Scrolls
Silk Song
canceled?
fans putting on the clown makeup for every single video game conference.
Yeah, so there are problems there are new problems that emerge with that, but like
Silk Song fans, when they realize the studio they're pressuring is legitimately 3 people.
Yeah. Team Cherry, you're on notice. Fucking yeah. I just it's a different problem, but it's from the same.
Yeah.
It's from the same source. It's announcing things too early. Only they could do their hiring things in private, right? If they could send their, but the industry itself
they
is
need
such
to
a
have
fucking
2 separate industry shows. They need to have a secret industry show where they get to just bring in like contractors
underground. It's underground, and everybody has to sign an NDA under gunpoint. Like, because like the industry is such a fucking leaky ship, right? That like,
Oh yeah.
I don't think that's feasible. You know, because as soon as it's going to be leaked that this game is being announced, or this
I mean,
they're
it happens
staffing
every
up
time
for
that
this.
a studio calls in like content creators, and all of a sudden people like sleuth together plane tickets and like, why are there 20 content creators from around
Yeah.
the world all going to Seattle at the same
They're
time?
looking at like Domino's orders, like they do for Situation Room.
It's it fuck, I just had another point I wanted to make.
About the
Yeah, well,
state of
so
employment.
the thing would be is like that those leaks would come out, and so obviously a company would rather manage that themselves, right? To be like, we want to be the ones to announce it rather than it be some, you know, uh worst kept secret type of thing, right? That's just being kind of left to go out of control with people speculating on what's going on. So I don't know that it's a problem that has an easy solution. Unless just to be upfront, to be like, yeah, hey,
No, I don't think that.
to be like, we're staffing for a game. We're staffing for a game right now.
Dog, when these studios
Don't
post
expect to hear anything about it for a
job
while.
postings on like LinkedIn or Indeed, those get posted on Gaming Leaks and Rumors
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
subreddits.
The one thing
Like
I would
Sony
change,
Santa Monica is hiring an Unreal Engine developer.
the one
Dude, they do it for
solution,
Pokemon
yeah.
shit when they're doing like independent contractors on like the equivalent of Japanese Craigslist. They post that shit.
The one solution is the deep fried Sonic meme, right? The I want fewer games with worse graphics, that take longer or whatever. I don't remember the full thing, but like
Yeah.
shorter games with worse graphics type of thing. And I'm not joking. Is reducing scope on games will turn that around. Allow companies to control their announcement, their staffing, all of that, to then have a more manageable development cycle that can more appropriately keep hype in check and produce something that is what's promised. And that's what's needed. The AAA scene is going to explode before that happens, or I should say implode before that happens. It will take a
Right.
series. It will
The,
take
I mean, the
another
triple
crash for that to happen.
right. It'll be forced to go that way because eventually it's going to be unprofitable. All right, so that's kind of the development
I was about to say
cycle and
we've
release.
spent a good amount of time talking development.
You have to,
no,
though.
no,
You
absolutely.
have to, though. You absolutely have to. We're talking about this game.
It's a
it would-
huge
it
part
would
of
be
this.
it would be irresponsible not to.
Yeah.
I mean,
so,
I could just say there was no
but I
Warren
think that
Bossing
is
say, and that the game has always been fine. And if you had issues with it, get more money and have a 3090, you idiot.
yeah.
This
Yeah.
thing ran pretty well on my 3060 Ti.
No, I was
ran pretty
speaking from
nice.
like at launch when people were like,
Right,
dude, the game
yeah.
runs fine for me. It's like, what are your PC specs?
Yeah.
So I have twin 3090s, an i9 overclocked, custom liquid loop, 128 gigs of RAM. I have 22 terabytes of NVMe storage. It's like, okay, cool. You
Yeah,
spent
no.
$15,000 to build a computer to run Cyberpunk.
But yeah, enough about the development. Ultimately, to CD Projekt Red's credit, they did get and make what I think is a pretty outstanding open world game. Didn't come out really until 2023. I think the version 2.0 is really the game that they were trying to get to. So
I think I
props
give
to
them
them
like
there.
an 85%
And I think,
on their open world game design. I think the map is just a hair too big for the stuff that they give you, and for like how little of the missions and things incorporate the entirety of the map. I think they could shrink it like
I
12
would
and a
agree.
half to 20%, and you wouldn't notice anything just by
I would agree.
like the sheer number of empty buildings that you can't interact with, or how every zone just has cut and paste, ripper dock, restaurant, ATM.
Yeah, it's. I would agree. I think the map gets a little big um, for my taste as well. But I want to talk about each of your playthroughs. So I played on the PS5 ultimately, and I've played obviously the whole base game and the DLCs. But where did each of you kind of end up in your plays?
So I probably played next in terms of actually no, did I finish the game before
I
you went
think
back
Andrew
and
started the game
Yeah,
before
you
you, but
did.
started and
okay.
stopped it a couple times, and then you
Okay, yeah,
finished
yeah,
it.
and then I finished. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I played it on PC. I played it like I said, and it ran pretty well on my 3060 Ti. It was the one game that I was saying that has made me want to upgrade my PC because I could not run ray tracing and get any really kind of acceptable performance for
Yeah,
me.
you would be well under 30 frames, I would expect it. Ray tracing with a
It
3060.
was yeah, I would hit 30, I could maybe hit 30s and 40s or so. I was, just running the benchmarks. And like, it was like, it would fluctuate from like 40s to 20s. Um, but so I ended up running it no ray tracing, but basically maxed out every other setting and was still getting like over 60 frames. Um, uh, running at least 1440. I mean, I don't have a 4K monitor, so it was still a visual feast. But like, yeah, I was like, God damn it, I feel like I'm still missing out on something
No, the ray
here.
tracing implementation in this game is really good. It adds a lot of
Yeah.
ambiance and atmosphere,
Uh, but
especially if you can max it out with HDR too. The HDR and ray tracing makes this game pop.
so like I said, I said earlier, I played on PC. I played right basically around the 2.0 launch, so about a year ago, and I played it after Phantom Liberty came out because I played right through Phantom Liberty and finished. I know Matt had wanted to ask earlier, as could say in this bit too, what our playtime either was or currently at.
Mm.
So yeah, mine for everything was, I think, around somewhere around 90. I think it was like the 80 something. It was maybe like 85, 86. Um, I can double check that actually. But yeah, Andrew, what was yours?
Yeah, I went and looked at my playtime and I was actually a little surprised. It was 90 hours all in. And that's I was thinking about
87,
it. I probably had 10
87.4.
hours. Okay.
87.4
Yeah,
was
so
my
I
time.
probably from the complete playthrough perspective, it was probably 80 hours. I think I probably have 10 of stops and starts between when I bought it and when I actually played it through.
So I played it on PS5 on the 2.12 release. Uh, I put 118 hours in currently.
And say got his endings last night on stream.
Hell yeah.
Dude coming in right at the fucking wire. Impressive. With Matt's playstyle, I salute to him to getting a
Yes,
ending.
agreed.
I don't know how that was possible.
I mean, the way this game breaks stuff out makes it really easy to just bang out a bunch of missions really fast if you can just melt people with your brain as a level 60
Mhm.
net runner on missions that are expecting you to be like level 12.
Yeah, that'll make things quick.
Like, oh my god, he's using tier 5 system collapse on like the second mission of the game. It's like, you're right, I am. And
I'm about to be doing the same style as Matt.
How far along are you?
Like 40-ish, maybe just short of 40 hours in. Um, I've opened the DLC and done that first mission. I've done the first couple of missions. I've done a lot of side content, and I'm currently a level 36 altogether, heavy into the Netrunner.
Dude, Netrunner,
I
go
think
for
Netrunner. I
Yeah.
think Ben said it yesterday on my stream. Might have been when we were in person together earlier in the
it was
day.
when we were
But
talking.
Netrunner leads to the best power fantasy overall
Mhm.
because you're just
For
fucking
sure.
melting people with your brain and just
Yep.
walking down the street, and there's just nothing they can do about it.
Don't even see it coming.
And
I like
it
to.
never gets old. Yeah,
Yep.
we were talking about it when we were driving yesterday.
Yeah.
It's so
I
fun.
like
Just
to
like
see. I like to look them in the eyes as I take out their leader. I like to
so
jump down
yeah,
and
he was a more in your face net runner. Where my favorite thing to do, it was usually just on gigs that you would do this most often. But like you roll up. I haven't even crossed the
just hack the
perimeter. I
cameras.
literally hack the camera and then just cycle. I would overclock, hack the camera, and just nuke everybody. I would just
Yep.
I would go through. I would go through camera to camera, nuke everybody. Come out of the camera hack, and the gig was done.
I'm a
And it was
little
very fun.
disappointed that post Phantom Liberty with the ending choice I made that I don't end up with some like neutered form of the Blackwall demon
Yeah, I would. It
because
would
it
be
would have been
cool.
cool like thematically like yeah it's not as strong as when you had Songbird with you because obviously Songbird's the real strength in that but it'd be cool to like be able to tap into it maybe like once every like 60-second cooldown or something.
It costs 50 RAM. Yeah, that would be kind of cool.
All right, so each of you went Netrunner builds. That's interesting because I did
Well,
essentially the exact
Netrunner might not be
opposite
what I would
in
describe my
doing.
character as overall, because my character just kind of kills people with
Okay.
whatever the flavor of the day is.
Yeah.
Net running is just how I begin the process.
I
Okay.
was probably I was probably closer to pure net runner, but like throughout the course, I did dabble in some melee combat. I was like trying to
Yep.
being like, oh, do I want to do like a katana build?
Katanas
And
are
like
fun.
Mhm.
I did some of that, but I eventually just really just kind of fully spec'd into a pure net runner. Like because I then like I didn't have the mono wire for a good portion. I mean, I had one, but I didn't like equip it for the longest time because I thought that
Synergize as well.
the mantis arms are cooler, which they are, but like it was
Yes.
like and like I kind of avoided
I think launch system is actually the coolest.
some of the smart weapons, but I was just like,
I
okay, fully
love the smart
specking into
weapons.
smart weapons and the mono wire because they became RAM recovery tools.
Yeah.
That was exclusively what they were used for. Like using mono wire finishers would replenish a shit ton of RAM, and then um, it was just be like literally uh, hacking the shit.
I was explaining to Ben that there's nothing more satisfying to me than having the combo perks as a net runner that you can hack an enemy net runner who's hacking you through walls. And when you hack an enemy net runner, the hack that you put on them spreads to their allies.
Mhm.
And like just putting a synapse burnout on an enemy net runner and then watching like 18 synapse burnouts fire off
Yeah, it's fucking
simultaneously
sick. Again,
and just
it's
watching an entire like room of goons just drop.
so I understand why I went Netrunner and why I gravitate towards it because I often in RPG class things are with my kind of power fantasy ideas for those kind of things, particularly with more fantasy, is like wizard,
Mhm.
and a Netrunner is the cyberpunk wizard,
Yep.
your intelligence based, your hacks or your spells, you know.
So
But
I
it
I
takes
went
skill. It does still take skill, like learning it's more about learning systems and about learning
Well, yeah, it's like knowing
orders of
that
operations
if you can kill someone with synapse burnout, you won't get tracked. Like the
and
traceability won't
and to
happen.
do
But
things
if you
like
don't kill them with it, you start getting tracked, and you have to make sure
and to
you're.
do things like you hit contagion on one person that's in a group and then overheat and then it explodes and spreads contagion around and like doing stacks of malfunction with a short
Yeah, just
circuit on
4 stacks of
top
cyber
and
malfunction to make people useless.
it's like create like an EMP and like all this stuff. So it's like it still takes skill. It's just kind of a different kind. Um, yeah.
yeah,
But I
and
mean, specking
that's something
into
I want to give the I want to give CD Project Red flowers for it because I doing the Sandevistan throwing knives pistol
I
headshot
think
build,
that's the
which
other. That
essentially
is
just
the other
gives you
cool
unlimited
one.
ammo.
That's the other cool one. Is
Yeah,
doing a Sandy
it's
throwing knife build. Yeah.
and
So
it's
many, so
super
many cool
fun. And
clips. So many cool clips of people doing the. You have to have the perk though, where you drive up onto a group of gangs. You do this. You do the slide out of your car.
Yeah, exit your car.
Hit the Sandy. So you slow down and then just knife throw into all of them. And then before the Sandy's done, you're back in your car and you keep going. Like some really cool
I
clips.
had
People doing
the
that.
baby Sandy cyberware. I think it's
Mhm.
the synapse accelerator, I think is what it is.
mm,
That slows down time for like 5 seconds when you get 50% visibility. And then
it's
I'll
a lot of fun.
combo that with the Deadeye perk, which slows down aiming, and use that for like
Yes.
3 or 4 headshots with a revolver real quick. Be like, you thought you
Yeah.
were in control here, but I was in control this whole time.
The combat I think is just very enjoyable. I very much
Melee
had
combat's
fun
kind of a shit show
playing
sometimes.
in this world.
Yeah, I wouldn't say
Yes, Melee's
I
not great.
love melee, but yeah, which is why like throwing knives is cooler because it is just
Right.
like a
Yeah.
non-gun ranged weapon, which is
It's like any of the boxing missions were
Exactly.
absolute dog shit.
no, those suck. Those are bad. Don't like.
Oh, I kind of love those.
Don't like.
Interesting. Those were those and the driving related missions were my least favorite.
I don't like the driving ones. I like the boxing.
I didn't
Interesting.
mind the races though. I was saying to Matt
The
yesterday,
racing's fine.
I
No,
didn't mind the races. Those were actually fun in terms of driving.
the game does a good job of kind of letting you win them, but they still
Yeah.
feel competitive. Um,
I like
But-
delivering cars to Mumar and his yee
oh
yee ass
God, no,
haircut.
those were my least favorite. I don't know why you tortured
I
yourself.
started ignoring those, pretty early into Phantom Liberty.
Well, you see, the problem is they do so well incorporating the dual sense that when a car is nearby, I get a light vibration in the controller, and the dual sense pulses a light green color to notify me, and
That's
it triggers an animal instinct in my brain to make it stop.
Unsurprised.
The
Nice to
funny
hear
part
that.
about those is those are one of the infinite missions. Like
yeah.
there's a
Yeah,
cutoff
yeah.
point for once you've done enough cars where you can buy all of the vehicles, but those will infinitely spawn, just like the Dogtown drops.
Yeah. Yeah.
I fucking hate the Dogtown drops, by the way. The amount of times I would be like, oh, I have to go meet someone in Dogtown at this place, and the place that's supposed to be a safe zone, and then a fucking Dogtown drop happens like 20 feet to the side of us.
I did not do many of those either.
Would have some good loot though.
Oh no, I absolutely would run through and just murk the shit out of
There's so
everyone
much
there because
loot
it was
in
good
this game.
experience.
It is a game that
Yeah,
it's slightly borderlines on too much loot, but the inventory
The
system
loot is kind of meaningless.
is pretty good. Well, because it was just you pick everything up and then you go to a drop box and you just sell all the crap.
Yeah.
Or you can
Well,
break
it's
some
like
stuff down for crafting it.
Once
Yeah,
you
I
get
break
to a
it down
certain
for
point,
crafting.
there's no reason to have once you get to tier 5, there's no reason to having tier 4 or below
Yeah.
materials.
Yeah, so no, I would still pick them up but then just sell them,
Yeah,
and I would just get a
I
lot of
would
money.
that or disassemble them. So
Yeah,
I
I only-
Well, that's
only
what I'm
really
saying is that the
disassembled-
upgrade components. Once you hit tier 5, there's no need to have tier 1, 2, 3, or 4 upgrade
Yeah, I
components.
only-
You
no,
only
need
yeah,
tier
exactly. But
5.
you could craft them. They
Yeah,
convert
you
into the
can
higher
stack
up.
them. You can turn lower ones into
Yeah, so I just
higher.
sit
Yeah, but
there and
it's
fucking-
so unnecessary
I didn't
because like
engage
I have
that much with
999 tier 5
crafting.
pickups all the time for no
Mainly for crafting, I only engaged with crafting quick axe because it was oftentimes easier to do that than to.
I mean, most of the
Than
quick
to go buy
hacks I
them.
just pick up off bodies at this point because that's just how it be.
I
So,
bought a bunch from the Voodoo Boys and then crafted I think the majority of my tier 5.
I killed the shit out of the Voodoo Boys. Fuck the Voodoo Boys.
Yeah, we don't like the Voodoo Boys, but we also don't like Netwatch either.
I mean, I killed both of them. I killed the Netwatch dude, and then I killed the Voodoo Boys.
No. As with most cyberpunk properties, there's really no good. There's
No, there's no
there's
good.
very few good characters or
No.
entities.
I was saying it to Ben. Everyone
Um,
stabs you in the back. in this game. Every single person will stab you in the back, except for Pan Am, and I just want her to, so I can move on from her.
Judy won't. Judy, we love Judy.
Yeah, Judy's
none of the
goated.
main NPCs will do that to you.
Yeah, they're the only ones until like the end potentially.
We haven't
Yeah, if you
talked at
give your
all.
body to Johnny, and they're all,
We
you find
also
out
we
that
have not
Johnny's a
talked at
fucking
all
dickhead.
about Johnny and about the Keanu of it all.
Yeah, I knew.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Andrew and I had a good discussion
so
earlier on
it's
about Johnny's politics.
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
interested.
it's a good segue into kind of like the themes and talking about the story that this game brings. Um, Johnny, what do you all think of the Johnny aspect of it? I know a lot of people didn't really like Keanu's performance. I personally thought it was really pretty good.
Dude,
Um,
those people
I
can get
thought he was
fucked.
Keanu.
I love Keanu. I
Yeah,
thought he was
like
really good.
he's
Like particularly as I compare it
yeah,
to
100%.
the Idris Elba, who I still think did a decent job. But he's he's phoning it in way more than you could.
Way more.
You can't even
Well,
say that
you can always tell when
that
Idris Elba is
Keanu's
phoning it in because he can't hold an accent down for more than 2 fucking scenes.
yeah. Yeah, whereas
Yeah.
Keanu is actually really into it and is like treating this as a real acting role, not
Mhm.
this is not just some quick easy cash for him,
No,
This
Keanu
is how they
killed
got
it.
linked up and became friends so that Keanu could be Shadow the Hedgehog.
I am excited for that. I'm excited for Shadow,
uh,
for Keanu Shadow.
so what did you all think about the storyline in general? Where did you think its highs were? Where did you think its lows were? Because I definitely have some of my thoughts that I'll expand upon, but I'd love to
I
hear
think Johnny's
yours as
story
well.
is the height. I think well, I'll start with I think the bit with
I think you can miss it too. I think the best parts
oh
of
yeah.
Johnny's stories are 100% missable.
Yeah. I think the relationship with Jackie at the beginning
Yep.
is a real strong point to then, really kind of tie you into the world when he is gone.
Yep.
And then the Johnny storyline and his character is, I think, then the strongest point. V's motivation itself can be at times a weak point. It's self-preservation,
Mhm.
it's understandable, but it's like it remains kind of surface level. Um,
I had my
And
V playing both sides, so he always ended out on top.
Fact that yours was we
I
didn't talk about the fact that Matt picked a non-canonical
yeah,
V.
Matt is the only male V in the chat, and he gets shunned for it.
Yeah.
That's fine. I just,
yeah.
when I'm given the choice, I rarely will make a lady character.
I like
Um
I often choose lady
That's
characters. What
excellent.
does that say about me?
Yeah. I often choose lady characters as well.
I agree with you that these motivations are thin. But I also think that's a hard thing to do when you're making an open world RPG. Like you kind of have to have your protagonist be a little blank. I'm okay with that there because you're asking the player to kind of create some of that for themselves.
I would be okay with that if the actual role playing options were stronger. That's
Fair.
the problem. And I think is the main actual criticism of the
Fair.
final product of the game is that the RPG elements are are paper thin. And that can be seen most clearly that only comes from hindsight of like hearing, say Matt's different playthrough as male V.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
seen most clearly through the romances. Matt is like
That's my biggest weak point.
like going, but for me that's emblematic of the RPG element. It's the choices. It's where it's most obvious. Because
you and I had a discussion about it where it's like, I don't need the game to be player sexual. Like Tears of the Kingdom doesn't have a dating element to it, but every character in the fucking Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom wants to fuck Link really hard, and they can't contain themselves.
Yeah, so the only exception I play for it is Baldur's Gate again, is because every character in that game is extremely fuckable. Yeah, I prefer characters with defined sexualities and
I would just
preferences.
prefer if the
They
defined
feel
sexualities had
feel
more of
real.
a actual divergence of how the characters interact.
I would like the stories to play out differently from a platonic versus a romantic interest, because like you're talking about how like the Judy and the River quest lines play out exactly the same, except you don't have sex at the end. That's the only difference. Whereas I don't really know exactly with I'm assuming the Pan Am one plays out the same as well, except
you get in the
don't.
tank, you go for a ride, and then she has sex with you in the tank.
Yeah, and so that's it, I guess. And she there was like an element where it's like, she like kind of flirts with you a little bit if you're female V, but like, nothing comes of it. Yeah, she will say that she doesn't
And it
swing
wouldn't
that
even
way.
need to be like that difficult of a. I'm just saying for like maybe with Judy, have Judy be like, "Hey, I can talk with you differently than I can talk with, say, like Evelyn, because you see things differently." Or
yeah, you're like, dude, is River gonna try to fuck me on the top of this water tower? And
he was talking to me like he was. I was given an option to kiss River.
Yeah, see, that's
So,
the one that's that's clear. It's just like basically it's the exact same thing. There's just one extra
It's
line
just he
at the
puts a
end.
hand up instead of
yeah, no,
and it's like he puts a hand up. It's like
so it's
River is the
interesting
most canonically
because
should be gay character in this game.
Even more than Judy.
Yeah,
Even
totally.
more than Judy.
But so interesting is that you all identified the same highs and lows that I did. I thought the opening storyline and the death of
Jackie.
I'm blanking on his name.
Jackie.
Of Jackie, thank you. The death of Jackie.
Like attending Jackie's funeral is a big side quest that I think everyone should do.
Yeah, attending his funeral is fantastic. The Johnny storyline is its highest height as well, and then yes, the RPG and
I'd say Judy
you said it too,
as far
though.
as the characters who have defined finish these characters' stories trophy lists. Judy's is the best.
Oh, absolutely, hands down, no questions.
Yes, Judy's the best storyline, and yeah, the RPG elements were lacking. The impact of your decisions.
Pan Am. I hate the fact that if you play as male V, that she is just like who the game actively pushes you towards, because every other choice you have is completely missable. Because Carrie is completely you will never meet him if you don't engage with that side content. The Militech lady is not a romance option as much as she just dumps you in a no-tell motel after a night of debauchery. But like Male V, they very much are just like, Pan Am is your choice. This is who we tell you to date. Rogue is like, you will love her. She is awesome.
I mean, it is essentially the same for.
Yeah,
I guess not really. I mean, because you do have River is the more, you do technically have two options as female V, but like it obviously is pushing you more towards Judy. But
yeah, but you meet Judy so much more organically, so much earlier in the story. Pan Am is such a late introduction comparatively, and like then her story feels very rushed through.
I don't like hate Pan Am, but I just like I
hate Pan Am.
I don't particularly enjoy her character or her quest line or all the calls.
I think her personality is very bland. I think her quirkiness is I get angry a lot, and it's like, all right, lady. We as children we learn how to deal with that emotion more frequently.
Pan Am red pilled Matt.
But yeah,
I was telling Ben the amount of times that I'll be like neck deep in a like enemy fortress and she'll text me and be like, I'm lonely with just a sad face.
I miss you. Yeah, as you take a bullet to the head. I do want to like circle back though to the to Johnny, and because he is where the obviously the themes of the game most play out, right?
Yeah.
And he is like emblematic of the inherent contradictions within the cyberpunk genre. He is the punk personified in this. He is the it is the unique nature of cyberpunk is the rejection of authority and late stage capitalism, but the embracing of the means and systems that are given without offering a true alternative, right?
Johnny has a
Johnny
really interesting
grows.
it's
He
towards the
absolutely
end of
his growth
Phantom Liberty.
is actually really interesting. But he is yeah the rage against the system
Well,
kind of
it's towards the
personified.
end. It might be right after you deal with Reed on one of the endings where Johnny sits there and he's talking to you about he's like, me and Reed could have been the same person. It's like if I'd stuck through
He
with
had
my
stayed,
service, like we
yeah,
have
if
the
he had
same
stayed.
like fault to our ideals or like loyalty to our ideals to a fault. And like I would have been him. I would have followed down that same, same path. And it's a very interesting parallel they throw in towards the end there.
And so obviously he's also the main kind of uh cipher, I guess, for the exploration of identity, right?
Yeah.
That is like truly the core that it's looking at more than like the kind of the
Identity is
transhumanism
just a digital
stuff.
construct you can put into your brain.
It is the idea that like that corporatism run amok will um basically atomize you to such a degree that you have no control over any type of internal identity. Everything is just surface, and that is obviously made most clear through the soul killer type thing, right? Is that like that your inner life can just be replaced on a whim, on the whim of the elite, and you have no inner world. You have no right to dreams. You have no right to that idea of a future, which is the main I guess you could call it the criticism of the cyberpunk genre is is that it doesn't offer alternatives. I don't necessarily come down on the critical side of that. I don't think it's the responsibility of every, you know, genre, art form, ideology, whatever to give that answer. I think the critique is valid enough that it provides, that Cyberpunk and Night City is the warning, right? Is the this is the warning of what the
Yeah.
world could be. It is not
Path we're on.
it is not providing the answer. But
Yeah,
I
and it
don't
Yeah,
looks
think
and
great.
that's
I want to
just
go there. I could have super cool cybernetic implants and eyeballs, and I could
So
jump 40 feet into the air, and I could get hit by a car and get up and keep running.
and
well, and just that's just like a good one, like storytelling mechanic, and two, just like if you're trying to teach someone and like impart knowledge on someone, you're not giving them the solution all the time. You're letting them get there. You're giving them the tools and the content and the different paths to potentially get to what you're trying to tell, the point you're trying to make. And if you do it well enough, they should get to that natural conclusion. And you will always have dinguses that go the opposite way. But you just can't always account for people that are that regarded.
I think you just
and
used a lot of words to say you can bring horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
I mean, essentially, yes. You know, Or,
The- and
give a man a
so,
fish, he eats for
Ben,
a day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime.
Teach a man to fish. You just wasted the opportunity to milk him for the rest of his life to pay you to fish for
Yeah.
him.
No, you teach him to
That's-
fish,
that's-
and then you just sell the fish that
That's
he
market.
catches.
That's market efficiency, baby.
so Ben, you were talking about kind of self identity, and the other aspect I think of the themes that particularly Johnny and the Soul Killer highlighted to me is it's also just reclaiming your humanity. Like this capitalism has dehumanized everyone to the point where they are just like the surface level. What's on your clothes is what you support, who you work for, what kind of class, what class you are
I
within
will
this
say,
system.
I
It's
do think
all
some of
just
the
right
people of
there,
Night City
surface
have
level.
done that to themselves. I think Maelstrom, in particular, definitely dehumanized themselves on their own accord.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But
They're like, yo, I'm
just
gonna
the
give myself a
dehumanization
giant
of
X,
capital.
like camera eye that takes up my entire forehead.
It's beautiful.
And
And
just to plug
V and
ourselves,
Johnny, I think kind of are reclaiming that humanity to the point where Johnny is trying to literally reclaim his human form.
and
So
You run
I
into that
did
with
enjoy
the
that
Buddhist
aspect of
monk
it.
side
You feel-
quests.
I'm curious, did you all think the side quests were better than the main storyline? Because I think that's kind of
No.
a common theme in RPGs and games like this is we see side content can often be better.
No,
Side quests are often better than the main storyline. Where did you all kind of end up there?
I've said like its most direct comparison for me, coming from the same studio, is The Witcher 3, where the main story in The Witcher is good. It's very good. It compels you to keep moving. But the side content is what makes that thing that world breathe and just be alive and uh make you immersed in the feeling of being a Witcher, right? Now, I found the side content to be rather kind of middling. Um, I don't think particularly like the true side stuff like gigs and whatnot, like that's like your kind of
I think
basic
you have to separate it
open
first.
world like it's almost an Ubisoft open world thing. I was saying to Matt yesterday, like gigs are essentially just your enemy encampments. There's nothing story there, and there's just like there aren't actually that many side jobs really. There's a decent amount, but like nothing crazy, and like I don't remember that much sticking out to me. Like I can't really think of a whole lot
I
beyond like
I
some
first split it between
interesting
base game and
characters
DLC
like Grenade Phase.
because all of the DLC side content is infinitely better handled than the base game side content because it's obviously got more time and catering done to each
More
individual.
focused. It's more
Only
focused.
10 gigs, only 20 side quests. So they're more catered. In the base
scope.
game, the gigs
talk-
are all garbage.
We talk about it again. It's scope,
Yeah.
right? It's a scope question. Something that's much more focused and can be more. Well, it's again what makes The Witcher 3 such a fucking phenomenal game is the fact that they have this wide-ranging system, because what you could maybe call a gig version in Witcher 3 are like Witcher contracts. And like that is so immersive because it's like that's what being a Witcher fucking was. Like I can't progress in the game like because I need fucking money. Okay, let's go kill some fucking monsters and do what a Witcher does is, make their living by killing these random beasts. Like that was really cool and rewarding. But whereas yeah, the gigs just, they became
I
boring over
basically just
time.
ran the gigs as a means of raising street cred so I
Oh,
could buy
yeah.
better tech, and then as a means of funding money
Yeah.
so that I could consistently get myself the best
Yeah,
cyberware.
it's why like when I got to max street cred, I basically only did them when I needed cash, which was also not very often.
From an efficiency standpoint, as someone who's engaged with essentially all of the side content, the NCPD like assaults in progress those are the money makers.
Mm-hmm.
You do those if you want to make fast cash.
Yep.
I can gain like 200k in like 15 minutes doing that. But the side jobs in the base game aren't bad. There's some really good ones. Obviously, the named character side quests that are prolonged and have multiple steps to them. Those are pretty solid. Um, there's a couple memorable
Yeah.
ones. You get your grenade faces. You get your broken dick. Bring me to the clinic guy. Um, but like overall, they're not.
Cinnamon.
Yep, Sinnerman's a good one. That's the crucifixion.
Yeah, okay, that
Mhm.
was a memorable one. Yeah,
Yep.
that's the rain dance one. Yeah.
That's actually one that I was talking to Andrew about, where I'm pretty positive that I should have not been able to complete that quest because I actively did all of the asshole atheist choices in the first encounter because I just didn't want to be a part of like, oh my god, this quest is going to be going to like 7 people's houses and fucking apologizing for murdering them. I can't do this. Um, but then when we go to the restaurant, I like actively pissed the manager off. Like I was just like antagonizing her the whole time because I hated her. And she like stormed off and I was like, okay, that must be the end of the mission. They're not going to call me back. And then like 2 days passed and they called me and like, we need you here. He's like, he needs help. He needs you to talk to him. It's like, all right, sure. This dude that's never he's known for fucking 3 hours
Yeah.
that actively went against all of his ideals while he was trying to apologize to this lady's mother.
I think, we've talked a lot. There's a lot to cover here. I think we could probably talk for like 3 hours on this game.
The last thing I would want to just talk about is the endings. Might as well end
Yeah.
on the endings, right?
Yep. Yep. That's
There are no good
exactly
endings.
where I wanted to go. What did what did you all think about the particular endings you chose? What ending did you choose, and do you think it's the best or most canon ending? Let's hear it from Matt. You wrapped up last night. You're the freshest. Let's hear your opinions there.
I ran 2 endings last night because they absolutely fucking lie to you. By the way, I'm gonna point that out. They're like, yo, if you run Don't Fear the Reaper, that's a permadeath run. No, it's super important that you don't die on that run, or else you have to restart from the beginning. And nah, dog. Once you get to Adam Smasher, you get a billion fucking auto saves that you can reload
Mm-hmm.
infinitely at that point. So I ran it first, ran through Don't Fear the Reaper. Initially struggled with Adam Smasher until I discovered there's an upper ring that you can just run around infinitely in a circle.
And he had to swap out
Um,
some of his quick hacks. He was using
yeah,
overheat instead of short circuit.
I mean
He was
because
like,
short
Mm-hmm.
no,
circuit's
no,
kind of
no,
useless in the base
no, no, no,
game.
no, no. Excuse me. Short circuit was in my queue the entire fucking game.
Nah, dog.
I was big
Overheat's so much
overheat.
better.
Yeah,
No,
overheat fucks.
I had both of them. You use both.
Yeah, I prefer suicide,
I would.
cyberpsychosis.
Well, yeah, I didn't use those. I didn't use like weapon glitch or shit like that. It was like
Yeah,
contagion, overheat,
Yep, contagion.
cyber malfunction, short circuit, system collapse.
Ben played his quick hacks like an 8-year-old does with Pokemon moves, where if it doesn't do damage, it doesn't go into the pool.
Well, there are plenty of those I mean, I would have like reboot optics, like that was a big one.
Yeah.
Ping is a necessary one.
If you
Uh,
if you don't have ping, I don't know what you're doing as a net runner.
Yeah. No, but
But
like I had specific cues that like did a shit ton of damage. Like, dude, I fucking melted Adam Smasher. Like literally just like doing like popping overclock, doing 4 stacks of cyberware malfunction, short circuit, and then a system collapse, and he's like 50% health in one go. Just
no, the
melted.
only issues I had with Adam Smasher was when I thought you had to fight him in the area of columns on the
Yeah.
bottom
Yeah.
floor, where I
Yeah.
kept getting stuck on the fucking columns every time I tried to dodge around him.
He would just punch you to death.
But no, once you just
Punch you
run him
right
in
in
a
the
circle, he's a
punch you right in the
fucking
dick.
his AI is so stupid. He just follows you, and you just turn around and then shut all his shit down, pop him once, shoot him a bit, run away. But I ran both outcomes of that ending where you either give Johnny your body or you keep it. and
Okay.
giving Johnny your body is a stupid choice.
Okay.
And so when I
Yeah,
watch it,
I went through the internal monologue with myself of like, okay, Johnny's a changed man. He wants another shot with Rogue. That was a whole big thing in that Johnny side mission of like wanting to restart. It's like, I'm going to give him a full lifetime opportunity to fucking fix shit with Rogue. Give him my body, and then we wake up and he has ignored everyone, been an asshole to everyone, shut everyone out.
I mean, I like didn't like so I was watching along, and so this is the temperance ending. Um, beyond the like just kind of ignoring people, which like I understand. It's like
Just say, hey, V gave me his body. I'm not V anymore. Sorry.
I'm saying you have to say her, because even
No.
though
but like what actually plays out with Johnny beyond like he is like starting over. He is starting
Yeah,
over.
he leaves.
He leaves. He is kind of he's cutting ties, but like in a lot of ways that's for the best for everybody. I don't necessarily view it as that he's making bad choices, that Johnny is making bad choices doing the temperance ending. Maybe could have handled it a little bit better, but like it's definitely with the NPCs, or at least the core NPCs for your playthrough, their reaction to it, it's definitely a bad ending. Um,
Yeah, as I'm
Panam
sitting in the
Panam
credits and
is
I have
like
like half the NPCs are like,
NPC's gonna
I'm gonna
or,
fucking find you and
yeah,
kill you, Johnny
Pan,
Silverhand.
the ones that know that you're Johnny are like, fuck off and die, or I'm gonna come and find you and kill you. Yeah, Rogue is like, yeah, you've learned nothing. You're still as
How'd you
selfish as
convince a dude to
ever.
give up his life for you? You're a
her
fucking
life,
loser.
Yeah, just like she tells you to leave Night City and never come back, and Panam's like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking find you and kill you. Um, and yeah,
Nice.
And so then I
Nice.
reloaded because I had to fill out some time for stream anyway. Reloaded the post Adam Smasher save so that I could loot his body this time. Because when he died to a quick hack, so he died on that like upper ring. And I didn't see that initially, so I jumped down, and then my cyberware malfunction happened, or my relic malfunction, so I couldn't jump anymore. So I couldn't go shoot him and loot his body. Well, I went back and did that, and then kept my body and became a legend of the afterlife, which I think is
Okay.
a overall, because of my disdain for Pan Am, better ending.
yeah. I did. So that's the sun ending, and that's what I did as well. Except I missed out on the secret path by one dialogue choice. In Johnny's chip and in quest, which I like had not looked up anything at all beforehand. I was just going purely role playing, and just naturally was choosing all the right ones except for one. I missed one. Um, so I had to do the
and
road.
that secret ending, you mean just you and Johnny invade
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
don't fear the Reaper.
I'd rather call it the secret path, not the secret ending, because it leads to the same
path.
ending
Yeah, path.
choices
Yeah,
Fair, fair.
Ben was actually
with a
kind of
slight
blown away
difference.
at the fact that if you do that ending choice, you talk to Johnny and then you're just at Arasaka Tower. You're just walking
Yeah.
in the front
I was
door,
like, holy
guns
shit. I was
blazing.
like, holy shit. You literally walk through the front door and just start fucking shooting. Cause like doing the
Yeah.
rogue path, like there was a whole much more preamble. You're talking to her, you're setting up the plan, you're going you like you your AV thing crashes and you've got to work your way down even more. Like the encounter is much longer doing the non-secret path.
Yeah. Don't
Um
fear the Reaper. You literally walk through the front door, the fucking metal detectors go off, and you pull out your gun and you just start blazing.
there's
Yeah.
like maybe like
That's the one I did as well.
there's maybe like four levels there, but like when you do the rogue one, you've got a lot more you got to go through in order to get down all the way into the basement. Whereas you're literally you start on the ground floor, so you're only just going to the basement for that
Yeah.
one. So there's a lot more involved in the. It's a lot longer of an encounter when you go with rogue. But then obviously the main difference is rogue dies in my playthrough. Somebody dies. no matter which choice you make,
Right.
unless you do the secret
That's why
ending,
I like Don't
the
Fear the
secret path.
Reaper as the outcome, because you
Yeah.
don't sacrifice it. I mean,
Well, so
granted,
here's
the Aldecaldos ending, like Saul doesn't matter.
I
Like
don't
Saul
Yeah.
is such an
that was so
underdeveloped nothing
weird.
character.
That was so weird. But my where I would kind of differ though is while I think, yeah, sure, it's a better ending that nobody dies. I personally think that it only is because Rogue is a more impactful character than Saul. But like I think the Sun ending with Rogue dying is the more canon and the more appropriate ending because I think it is more effective for the story and the themes to have it be, you know, to have you can't even call it bittersweet to have it be a tragic ending
Right.
is more fitting that
Yes.
like things don't end well there is no good ending, good outcome. People are going to die. V is going to die in
See,
some
I have
manner.
an argument for that though, because I think Phantom Liberty has one outcome that is distinctly better and has the most good outcome to it than any other.
Which one's that? You mean like so I
Sending her to the moon.
oh yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
get to
but that's
retire Alex. You free
Yeah.
Reed from his internal prison. You
yes, but that's still tragedy because you're still doomed to your fate. You have to kill Reed, and you know, Alex is kind of like, you know, rudderless, but yes, free in some way. Like, yeah, there's goods and bads there, but there is no clear cut, everybody wins, perfect, you know, neatly tied in a bow. And that's, I think, more
the
effective in
only
terms of its
additional
story.
better part of that outcome would be if you could go after Myers.
Sure. And so
If
like
you're given a choice to take Myers out
so yeah,
at
so
the
let's
spaceport.
talk a little bit as well that like
I
yeah,
wanted
so
that so bad.
yeah. So yeah, Matt and I also got the same ending for Phantom Liberty, the King of Wands ending where you send Songbird to the moon. Um
So, yeah, I did that as
yeah, so
well.
I think Andrew and I probably had the same, except
I
you were able to do the secret path part of it. But yeah, it's the Sun ending and then or yeah, the King of Wands and then the Sun ending. But I personally still think that the Sun ending with Rogue is the canon and most appropriate uh end. Because it's you know it's
I agree with you. I do think for that
there's
no, for
just
that
enough
very reason of the
there's just
more
enough good
tragic.
and bad. There's you know the themes become stronger with that outcome. Um, you know that you know that V is like only
But
able
if you
to
do the
kind of
suicide run and you don't sacrifice anyone, Johnny is now giving up Rogue to go off with Alt, and you have that part of the storyline as
okay.
well.
I think
Yeah.
that maybe is a little bit better for yeah for Johnny and is like shows his growth a little bit more. Whereas yeah in the other version it's like basically he doesn't have anything. He doesn't have
Yeah,
anything left.
because that was
Um,
where my moral dilemma was when I sat in fucking cyberspace for what felt like 10 minutes, spinning back and forth between the two directions to go. It
I
was
thought
like,
about it for a minute.
Rogue is like fuck off and die.
yeah, that was she was like the last part of the credits,
And
and when
it's like
she did
kind of
that, I was like, oh
interesting.
wow, like
It's kind of interesting, and again, it's the point I try to make about Johnny's character, right? Is like that it proves the tragedy of his character that his growth came too late. He already had his life. He had his chance. He made those choices, and he's still feeling the impact of it. The fact that like Rogue doesn't know this version of him now well enough to be like yeah like that he wasn't being selfish, that like this was something that he a path that he chose with V and all that to see where Johnny has come. She doesn't know that. She assumes the worst in him, and that is something that he you know something that he must sow from the actions of his past. So
I mean,
And
I don't
just
know if you get the choice when you start the Johnny set where you go to the drive-in with Rogue, where you let him take over. If you're female V, do you still get the
yeah,
whole
yeah, yeah.
um but it's like that whole scene plays out in a way that very much makes it seem like she just does not trust him or his intentions at
Hmm.
all ever.
Hmm.
Well, and that's a lesson for all women out there to never trust men and their intentions. Even if we've done growths, it's never enough.
The rest of us on the podcast do not support the gross misandry that was just explained.
I was about to say, Mike basically just did the "Would you rather be locked in the woods for a month with a
Yeah.
bear or a man?"
Yeah.
poll from like 3 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't even know about that. That's fantastic.
Dude,
Give me the bear.
fucking rock.
It was a big thing on Reddit that blew up where it was
Yeah,
like
no, it's
women were like
everywhere.
70% answering to like
Yeah,
stay in the month, like
with the
stay in the
bear.
woods for a month with a bear
Because that
over
bear's a
man.
dude, like he's a guy. You could chill with him.
I think the logic was just like, what's going to happen with the bear. You're probably going to get mauled and eaten at some point.
There's less anxiety. There's less
I mean,
anxiety involved. No
yeah, I mean, you're
gaslighting.
more
No,
likely than not know what's going to happen with the man too. But
the bear won't gaslight you.
yeah. That's the key difference.
Totally and upfront and honest with its intended violence.
I liked my ending of going be a legend.
Yeah.
Doing the sun ending, I think, is the best, whether you go the secret path or not.
And I mean, the
Great.
super secret path, including Phantom Liberty, is the shittiest ending in my opinion.
God!
If you want to talk about the most
Agreed.
canon Cyberpunk ending, there's your most canon Cyberpunk ending.
So fucking bleak.
There's your bittersweet. You get to live for the rest of your life.
That's not
your
sweet
friends
at all.
fucking hate you.
That's just straight up bitter. That just sucks.
I do think it's funny that that's how they went with the like super secret ending. Just like so
you get to live
miserable.
You get to live, but no one you fucking befriended will care about you anymore, and you can't wear cyberware. And the only person who cares about you now is Reed, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Great, this fucking semi-deranged attack dog of the NUSA.
Yeah. So Andrew, what about you though? What were your
So I agree with you that the sun ending is the best route. That's what I found to be the most canon in my mind. I think it fits your characters.
You saw, Ben,
Johnny.
from my run last night. Johnny fights you way harder if you try to give him your body than if you just take the body back.
Yeah. And that's what, so like, that's kind of was how I ultimately decided. I was like, I kind of wanted to send Johnny away, but I started walking towards V to do the temperance, and Johnny's
he fights you like 4 or 5 times on that bridge.
He's like telling you no, and to me that's like, all right, so
calling you a fucking coward.
The game's telling you which way to go here, and it makes sense narratively, and I think it ultimately gives Johnny a really strong resolution to his overall character and in the arc.
A perfect encapsulation of the romance of my V and Pan Am was that when he wakes up in that fancy apartment and he goes into the shower and she's showering, he kicks her out to shower by himself.
Perfect. All right, so I don't think we're doing scores for games. I will say
Matt and I were talking about scores.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I said last night it's a high 8s for me, like an 8.7, 8.8.
Let's hear it. That's where I land.
Yeah,
because like
that's where
there's just enough bugs and glitches that I encountered where like it can't be a 9.
Yeah, he had way more.
There were too many crashes for me to be able to excuse that. But like the bones of a good like B+ game are there.
Yeah.
Did you guys experience as many crashes and technical things on console that you did?
I had maybe 3 crashes. 2 were real crashes. 1 was my fault because I was like trying to download the DLC and reload the game and whatever. So like that one I put on me. But I had multiple times where I fell into places where I couldn't get out. Like I couldn't jump high enough and like I was just completely locked. So I had to reload. There was a couple times where I was trying to jump through like a entryway, or like a receptionist like cutout window
Window.
type thing.
Oh,
And I would get stuck. And I was able to get myself out, but instead of reloading, but it took me like 5 minutes of like wiggling and crouching and standing up until I finally got out.
I think a
But
majority of my crashes I can attribute to running on the higher graphic settings with the HDR and stuff enabled. Because I definitely know one of my crashes
PS5
was
is like,
a
no, too
super
hot.
HDR related
Too hot.
issue.
Too hot. Must cool down.
Well, because every
no,
time I
I
would
didn't have
reload the save to try
much.
to fix that crash, it would start out with like probably 30 seconds of just blinding light, so I couldn't see anything.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, I need to get away from this location because something in the lighting here is like fucking my game up and like unable to fully like register what's going on when I tried fast travel.
Yeah, I say I don't think
Because
I
it
had
would basically
any
put me into
technical
the fast
issues.
travel menu, and then instead of giving me the loading screen afterwards, it would just black out and act like I was still in the open world. And so I could like pull my menu up and cycle through the menu to like exit the game, but exiting the game was still a black screen. So you had to physically like back out, close game, reopen.
Yeah, I didn't have any technical issues, so I can't like that doesn't affect my score at all. It's just it's largely it's my being a more I don't know what the right word is, but I guess it's more a more critical having a more critical eye for RPGs. Um, that being like one of my like real main genres, particularly Western RPGs, more so than Matt. Um, I I have to ding it for that, but normally I think I would lower it more than even what I ultimately end up as is like yeah like an 8.7 8.8 maybe even an 8.9 on it depending on the day. um it's just because everything else about it is done so well, the story, the characters. I just really like Johnny as a character so much, and I think the story is strong enough, even though there are some flaws. I don't necessarily know that all of its themes land as hard as they would want it to. Um, but I can be charitable enough. But just that, like, it was an enjoyable of enough, and it was such an enjoyable experience. It's actually a better way to say it. That like it comes back up in my estimation, even despite some of the fundamental flaws that exist as it being an RPG, right? That I think is where I end up.
Yeah, I agree with you on that scoring, and think for me it's just there's certain things that could have been polished. The like cop stuff was
Oh,
even in its
useless,
fixed state not great.
useless.
The
All the
warrant
GT,
Yeah,
system
it's
all
so
the
stupid.
is
GTA element type stuff shouldn't exist in this game.
yeah,
It's pretty much
more annoying
impossible
than
to
exactly. And
anything.
and
drop
for
your cop
those
level on once you go over two. Like
You
once you
just have
go
to
over
run
two, the
away.
way that they
Yeah, you just run
relentlessly
away.
search for you before the things start to begin to flash is kind of insane.
You have to run really far away. You've got to like drive
Yeah.
really, really far away.
No, like the only
Or
luck I
fast
ever
travel.
had was if I was out in the Badlands and I could just drive off into the fucking trash pile.
It is a game ultimately that I'm glad that they stuck with and that they
yeah,
improved.
yeah,
And
no,
I'm so glad that Matt enjoyed it to the level that he did, because now I can be like, you have to play The
Ha-
Witcher. You
Dude, you
have to,
got
you
to.
have to do
You
it.
have to.
He's been
Have
so
to have it.
resistant because he's I'm steepling my fingers. He is so cultured, that he is, I think like in his bones, opposed to the Eurojank, right? And is purely just
I mean, it's a
an
combo
Eastern.
factor there too, because I'm also opposed to starting a game on something that doesn't say one.
I know, but you don't have to. You really
Yeah,
don't
not at
have
all.
to. But yeah, if you like, I would say play three, and if you enjoy it, then go back and try to play the other ones. Like that's what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to play the original one before the remake
You
comes
got to
out.
play the original on an original 2007 Mac.
Nope, nope. I think I have it on GOG. I think. All right, Andrew, you're the boss here today.
I mean, I think we got everything covered for Cyberpunk. There's lots more that we could talk about. This is an expansive game. The DLC is a lot of fun. I was thinking about this for like these open world Western style RPGs. This is probably my second favorite I've ever played, just behind Red Dead Redemption 2. And to Ben's point, I'm glad they stuck with fixing it. They really did make a really strong all around experience, with this game. You know, even regardless of those initial shortcomings at release, this is a standout job by CD Projekt Red. There is a sequel. They've already announced it about 2 years ago now. So they announced it as Project Orion, and we'll see when that comes out. Probably next console cycle, but I know I will be playing that, and I think most of us here will be as well. So,
Yep.
Have you played The
Thanks for
Witcher
listening.
substantially?
I played some of 3.
A good
Yeah.
amount. Yeah. We'll have to put it on the list eventually to make sure to get the rest of you two to actually finish it.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
Since we didn't plug it earlier, and if you want to hear more of our discussion on like the cyberpunk politics, check our previous episode on
check the Edgerunners episode. Yes.
Yeah, Edgerunners.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that.
Maybe we'll link that in the pod episode bio.
I'll try to remember. Yeah, I'll have to go back and look, see what episode.
All right, so we will. Ben, I'll let you take it away with the wrap up.
All right, so I think next week, so long as scheduling works out, we will be hopefully wrapping our Call of Cthulhu little adventure. So be on the lookout for that. And I'm gonna say probably we will decide what our adaptation for the month is going to be as soon as we stop recording this episode. We need to figure that out. So no idea what that'll be, but yeah, next week will most likely be the wrap of our Call of Cthulhu. And yeah, I would like to, on a future tabletop episode, I'd like to try the Cyberpunk tabletop game. I think it would be fun. Would take some learning. Yeah, I don't know how exactly we'd go about it to try to get everybody up to speed. But yeah, that's what you can be on the lookout for us in the near future. And till then, you can follow and support us on all the social medias at CampCompod on Twitter. Check out the Patreon, which I believe is just under Campaign Comrades. Starting to do some kind of just some written content that's, not behind the paywall, open to the public.
Check us out both on Fansly and OnlyFans.
Yeah, I wrote a little post on the Concord shit show. I gotta figure out what I want to write this week. Think about what we talked about today and what I may want to continue the conversation on Cyberpunk. So be sure to check that out. And then at twitch.tv/campaigncommons. And I think that'll do it for today. Thank you, Andrew, for leading us through this episode. We've got one more dictatorial game choice episode coming from me later this year, where I'm making them play another RPG in Disco Elysium. So I would say as soon as you're done with Cyberpunk, you guys should definitely work that into your schedule. Not a super long game, maybe like 30 hours at most, but I really want you guys to see it through to the end, because there are some significant points there that kind of bring the whole thing into relief that I think are important to discuss. So that's something far in the future that you all can look out for. So we'll see you next time.